But people say, oh, I keep buying leads and all the leads are crap. No, I mean, the leads are what you make of them. And in the end, the leads that are going to be really quality are going to be people that are going to come to you from people that know, like, and trust you and who see you as a constant because that trust is built, whether it be through seeing your signs all over different neighborhoods, whether it be for if anybody's still doing like magazine ads or anything like local placement, any sort of media, any sort of social media, it's that trust that you're building with your audience over and over again with that consistency that's going to help you more than any lead source.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm excited to have Dana Flanagan on this week. She is a mentor. She helps people with business development, social media, leadership. She really kind of does it all. She is the authority architect, is her brand. Her view is, how does she turn your expertise into influence, visibility, and access? All things that are needed in our world of real estate. And I'm excited to have Dana on with us this week. Thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, certainly it's a mouthful, but in our world of being basically an agent, an independent contractor, it, whether you're, Compass, Remax, Century, whatever your brand is, I always view that's not that important, right? The brand that's important is you, because your word of mouth, because that's how you're going to get more business from people having great experiences with you. And when their friends, family, and colleagues say, what did you use to buy or sell a house, or what have you, your name's going to come up. And I've always felt that with technology, the sign that's on the lawn is less important than whose phone number is there. So when someone calls them, they have a productive conversation to move things along. So, but you're the authority architect in branding and in development. So give us a little bit about, things that you see, how you help people, and what you see right now out there in the world of real estate.
Sure. Yeah. So I have over 25 years as a top producing realtor. And as I've kind of transitioned in my latter part of my career, I've gotten into helping other agents be able to, and brokerages, scale and expand. And the first thing that we always go back to is, as you just said, you are the brand, right? So there's a lot going on right now, especially with all the different mergers and acquisitions and name changes and that sort of thing. In the end, people are buying you, right? They're buying into you, your service, what you offer. And that's why that personal branding is so important. Creating that presence. I see a lot of people, they do it through perhaps like the colors that they wear, right? Or they do it through their brand message and their how they help somebody. So I always tell people, what do you do? And they say, I'm a realtor. Well, that's not good enough, right? Because there are hundreds of thousands of realtors in your state, in your market, right? So, how do you differentiate yourself? And you've got to come up with a niche, and people are really afraid to niche it down. But coming up with a niche of who you help and how you help someone, what differentiates you from your competitors? And that's so important to take that time to really create that personal branding. And it's not just a pretty logo, although that is important. Logos, colors, maintaining that consistency across all of your social media and coming up with kind of your brand message. So when someone asks you what you do, it's going to come down to a small sentence. And it's always, I help your specific avatar with their specific problem through your service or product. Right. So you can kind of write that sentence out and fill in those blanks. And that's what your brand message should be when someone asks you what you do.
So, it is about, 100%, it's about branding, and it's about who you are and what you bring to the table, which to me, everyone always is like technology, but technology is not what anybody wants. That might be how you get ahead in front of somebody, but it's you. And so what's interesting is, we talk about AI, right? And how do people leverage AI to scale or to run their business? And I'm not a Luddite where I do like technology, but I don't want a bot texting my clients about my branding strategy, right? I
Mhm.
want to be the person. And so I do feel that from a lot of the podcasts that I do and talking to a lot of different agents is like, oh, I don't even talk to the clients. My bot is doing that. And ultimately, if I'm doing a listing presentation, I'm going to be the person in the house, not my computer generated,
Right.
person trying to do that. So, but in all things, I think it's leveraging technology for good is what you should do to drive success. But ultimately, it's people want to do business with people because you said it. It's not just a real estate. If you just needed a real estate agent or just needed someone to open the door, there would be other ways that you would just, use they'd give you the code, your face recognition would open it up as a buyer. They'd know who's in their house, and then they would work the deal out. But obviously, there must be some secret sauce in a real estate agent. Otherwise, we wouldn't
Right.
be needed.
Yeah. So I think there's a time and place for AI, right? And this is a very personalized experience still. And I think it needs to remain personalized. I actually think we're going to be seeing a lot of reverting back to that because it's like, yes, we're always growing with AI, but I think I always say go back to basics, right? Because you can use AI to do a lot of things. Automate some of your workflow behind the scenes, schedule your newsletters, write your newsletters for you, but you're behind all of those things when you're implementing what the prompts to go into the AI. And there's a lot of things that can be done behind the scenes with AI, such as CMAs, market analysis, proposals, whatever you may be working on. AI is great for that. It's a great time saver. But when it comes down to being like forward facing with the client, I truly think that will never I think that will never go away. I think that customers want to know that you care. They want to know that they're in good hands. And I know a lot of AI, I'm sure we've all seen it, doesn't always work the way we want it to work, right? Like I'll get a random text and it will be like out of sequence. I'm like, what does this mean? Right? Because they didn't set it up correctly. Or you respond to something in like a social media post where it says comment the word listings and we'll send you our listing. And then the prompt or there's a breakdown in the trigger and therefore you're not getting the right information. Or you'll write somebody something and you'll get like a bot response and you're like, wait a second, I'm not really talking to this person. It's sort of a put off, right? So I think it's important that you've got to have your AI really dialed in if you're going to have it do some of that forward facing work for you. But I think in the end, nothing is more powerful than a voice note or a personalized message and still picking up the phone and allowing AI to be able to do the things behind the scenes that the customer doesn't necessarily see.
I agree. It's hard if you're using technology to do less, right? You want to do it in the things that people won't see clearly, right? You know, for me, again, I did 55 transactions last year. I don't have an admin to do my memos. It's for me, it's not that hard to take a memo and to edit it, right?
Mhm.
So where it then has, like, I don't even use an admin to do it because my memos are based off of the deal that I just put together. So if I have to tell someone to do it and then have them do it, then to look at it, don't
Mhm.
have to, the step of me just doing it is not that difficult. If I wanted to do 300 transactions a year, well, then I probably couldn't do that. But also, am I as good of an agent if I do 300 deals a year than if I do 55, 60, or whatever? There is a threshold that you can do it. There is an amount that you can't, that you're too thin. So it really depends. And it also clearly depends on what market you're in, right? Because in a market with, let's say, $150,000 price points, you do have to do more. In a market of $800,000 price points, you have to do less. The one way that you can be more productive is actually dealing with getting in a room with people that have more money, right? That
Mhm.
are buying and selling at higher. Because if it's 5 times the amount than your average, then clearly you can even do less and give more customer service to those people. So, getting in the right rooms in front of the right people, as you talk about, you say to command the aligned, opportunities. That I love that because that is exactly. It's
Mhm.
not. It's aligning opportunities is so important because then people don't. I don't view myself as a salesperson. I don't sell anything.
Right.
That and I grew up selling. Right, selling is my whole life. I am not selling now. I'm really into customer service, right? My clients have a need to buy or sell homes or investments, and how do I guide them, become their coach and their mentor through the process to protect them, to ensure that if they're buying something that they're protected, if they're selling something that we're getting the most price in a way that makes sense, right? And so when people see that you're aligned with their needs and that
Mhm.
that you're looking out for them and you really are their advocate, that's how you're going to get that deal done. And then they're going to refer people to you and refer people.
Mhm.
So people see through like shady salesmanship. Are you helping people? And that's really, and that a bot can't really, well, at least maybe I'm old, I'm 57, so at some point I won't have to work anymore, and then maybe the computers will take over. But for the next few years, I think we're okay that people are going to work with people, so I should be good for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So there's so many points there that you made. Finding leverage in your business is important if you're going to scale, if you're going to grow, if you're going to do more transactions, whatever the case may be. Like for me, I always had a transaction coordinator that inputted my transactions into our dashboard and our system for that particular brokerage, that did some of the admin work that you necessarily wouldn't see as a customer. And she did work that the customer would see. And I set the expectation in advance when I went on the listing appointment, because I primarily did listings for the majority of the latter part of my career. And I had buyer's agents that did buyers, because at a point I just couldn't do everything anymore. And I would let the client know this is what happens next. And I think it's okay to have leverage. It's needed in order to grow. But letting your customer or client know what comes next. When this happens, now you're going to get an email from my tech transaction coordinator, right? Or my admin or whatever you have in place. They're typically okay with it as long as they feel well taken care of. And if you're creating that authority with your clients and you're letting them know the steps and what happens next, they're generally okay with it. And it also makes you look like an expert, and you're maintaining that authoritative control of the transaction. Same thing when you go on a listing appointment. I always went on a listing appointment like I already had the listing. That's just me. I was very confident in my abilities, and most of the time I got the listing. There were some times I didn't, but I always went in as if I'm going to be listing this home. So it was never like this desperation of needing business. It was always like taking a ton of notes, so I knew exactly where everything was, and what type of heat they had or whatever, making notes as I walked through the home. So I had those notes when they called me back to list the property. So I always walked in that way. And I think that led to a lot of success in my business, and always coming up with something that puts you in rapport with your client. So letting them know, like if they have dogs and you have dogs, oh, what are your dogs' names? Oh, my dogs are blah, blah, blah. Something that will connect. Like I remember I'm a big skier. So I would see skis like in the basement when I'm touring the house and go, oh, do you guys ski a lot? And they would say, oh, yes, we have a house I lived in Connecticut. They said, oh, we have a house in Vermont. We go all the time. Great. Oh, so do I. And then you automatically have that bond. So whether it be their children or whatever, noticing a picture on the wall, always creating that rapport initially sets you in authority. Because remember, this is one of the only businesses where we are walking in to be chosen into someone's private home, right? That's really hard to maintain authority and control in someone else's home. So how do you do that where it isn't a put off to the client, but you are controlling the situation and the conversation and the narrative when you're in someone else's private space? So that's where it really comes down to, there's some key techniques and things that an agent can do to not only maintain control of their business, their clients, but also always come across as the expert in their field, or they're the person that is the go-to in their market.
So obviously, so I've been doing this for 10 years. So, which meant 10 years ago, I was a rookie, right? I wasn't rookie. I wasn't new to being, I was old. I was 47, right? So I was involved in sales and marketing for 20 plus years at that point, but new in real estate. So everyone has to like pick what they want to do and what their expertise is going to be and their niche and their branding. So for me, buyers were the way that I could more easily
Mhm.
get my feet wet, right? And start and getting involved and learning. And then, and so the funny thing is, even now, people are like, well, do you list or are you a listing agent or a buyer's agent? I'm like, I'm both. I've
Yeah.
always been both, right? But when you're newer, you take more buyers because you need to get and now you have 20 deals, now you have 50 deals, now you have 100. And so I think it was by like my third or fourth year that I did 52 transactions that year, and 26 were buyers and 26 were sellers. I think it was my fourth year. So
Mhm.
I basically turned into an agent, right? Because it was basically people that you help buy early on might then want to sell and they want to buy again. And so I do think it's kind of cyclical. And, so for me, certainly you can be more productive doing listings, right? As opposed to buyers take more time because you got to take them to houses. And if it's a seller, if it's a buyer's market, maybe it's a little faster, but in a seller's market, you could be putting in 5 deals, 10 deals. And so you need to probably have a little bit more patience and time as a buyer's agent. So, but I think, in this being cyclical, you kind of do both. And what's interesting for me is that I don't really have any teams, right? I don't need to have teams because I'm the broker and I have a brokerage, right? So
Right.
if I do share clients with so that's one way. Instead of having a buyer's agent, I might post share, certain buyers if they're further out than my area, or if I know it's going to be a little bit more time where I can still guide where it's working together as a team. But a lot of it is really the expectations. And so one interesting thing is when you build your brand, it's hard for me to say I'm the brand, but now go work with somebody else, right?
Hmm.
So because people are like, why would I want to do that? I want to work with you. And so, that's the dancing around it and trying to, how can you do both? And so, because so my thing is that I don't push people off, but and every situation is different, right? How far away is it? What's the price point? Who are we working with? But it's a fine line. And those are the things that I think what you said, where, AI and bots and all this other stuff are good in many purposes, but not in everything. And so
Yeah.
I still think that there's a need, because you said you want to get in the right room, with the right people. Well, a computer's not necessarily going to do that, where people, still want people to help sell their house because you know, that's what they're going to, they want to be able to understand, that you're probably going to help sell their business, sell their home for them.
Right, right. And so with the branding, and that's why if you're going to have a showing agent or a buyer's agent, or you're going to start to implement these things in your business, that it's important that you have that cohesiveness with it. So what that means is having a team where everything is branded. So everything is branded to the team name, and everybody had the same ending of their email address for my team. Everyone had the same logo. And so it was clear to the customer or the client who did what. And it was, again, it didn't look like they were just getting pawned off on some other realtor with the brokerage. They were dealing with my team. And so, and I was the number one agent in my town for a very long time and in the area. And so I think people know when you're getting somebody at that level that's selling that many homes, I think it's just they're expecting to not constantly be dealing with the same person. Although they dealt with me quite a bit. Like they were listing their home, they dealt with me all the time. And then, the transaction coordinator would email them like an inspection form or something like that. But they're always dealing with me. If they were going to buy a house, they would deal with one of my buyer's agents, and they knew that was who they worked with for the buyer's purchase. So it worked for us for a very long time. And market dynamics have changed a little bit. Some of the rules have changed with the branding for team names. And as far as, there was some stuff that I guess came out a while back. I want to say it was like 2017 or 18, maybe like right, yeah, maybe right around there, where you couldn't have realty or group in your team name anymore, at least where I was, because it was confusing to consumers as to whether or not it was a brokerage. And so
Right.
a lot of that changed. There's been a lot of changes in the real estate world as of late. And for me, it's been 25 years, so it's changed an awful lot. But one constant that should never change, no matter what you do, and I have several businesses now, and some of them don't really have anything to do with real estate, is that branding should always be cohesive. When someone goes to your social media, when they go to your website, it should be very clear to them what you do and how you help them. And so having that consistent branding across the board And I say this because if you are going to switch a brokerage, have that branding be about you, because some people have this whole panic when they switch brokerages. I'm like, it was never a problem for me. My email was always the same. My branding was always the same. I just changed the company name at the bottom. And so I, for me, that's huge. Not using the company email because I want control of everything. I want my own database. I want my own hub. And that I can take with me anywhere, and nobody else owns that but me. And I think that's important when you're building a brand for yourself and you're building a business for long term.
Well, I agree 100% with you, which is why I'm not a big fan of the teams because any of your buyer's agent that's on a team, it's more about the team than it is about them. So
Mhm.
I agree with you 100%, but but you're able to leverage newer people to real estate who need
Mhm.
help. And you're like, well, if I'm giving you leads that I've secured, that's how we're going to do it. So that's my secret sauce a little bit is that I'm the broker, right? Where I don't put my name on it. It's the brokerage and everyone, and I allow all of my agents to do their own branding for
Mhm.
in their name. So even if they're working with me, it's them, right? Where I don't mind where if we're sharing a deal and then in the future a referral comes and they get it, that means they really earned the respect and trust of the person. And again, as the broker, I'm getting, as long as the person's still in my brokerage, then I'm still getting a piece. But I've always felt that I started a brokerage for two reasons. One, so that I could sell, right? Instead of giving cuts to other people, that I keep it myself. And then also because I do like coaching and mentoring as well. And so I'm coaching and mentoring independent agents who
Mhm.
are, three of us this year made the Real Trends top 1.5%, myself and two other of my agents. And my view is that I'm doing everything that I can to help the agents do that because if I can help them become successful business leaders, then they'll stay, right? And
Mhm.
if they don't stay, then they go, right? Like
Right.
it's not,
Right.
we talked about like at some point, how much is enough and how, like, do you need to scale just to scale? Is $40 million of transactions enough, or do I need to get to 100 million? Do I need to get to a half a billion, right? Like I would say sometimes bigger causes bigger problems, right?
Sure.
So,
I
but
think it's really for each person's choice, right? I used to think I wanted to have this huge team of like 30 people, 50 people, whatever. And come to find out, as my team started to grow, I didn't really want that. I ended up, when I was the most successful, I had a team of about 5 people. And that really worked well for us. Now, for everybody, some people want to be a broker owner. That was never my goal, right? So my goal towards the end of my real estate career, what would be, I would say, like the final step, right? Because for most people, they fall out of the business. For me, I wanted some sort of like VP, president position at a company, but I never want to be an employee. That's hard to find, right? So I found that now where I am. It took a long time to get there. It took a lot of failing forwards. It took multiple brokerage changes to figure out what worked best. Some people offered me things that really, when it got there, the whole back end of their brokerage was a hot mess and didn't seem like that on the outside, right? And you just know, like, this is not going to go anywhere. This isn't scalable. So I think it's okay to try things and say to yourself, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to take a step back and regroup and form something new. And so I've always been an innovator and somebody that's not afraid to pivot. And some people are afraid of that. They're just afraid to change. Like brokerages for me, like that's not a big deal to me. I go where I'm valued and I go where I can have the most growth. And what lights me up every day. And so that will change over time for a lot of people. I loved listing and selling. I would run around like a maniac all day, listing houses. It's kind of like this high that you get and you're on this hamster wheel, but you can't get off because once you start to get successful, you want to do better next year and next year. And so it's like, what's that end game for most realtors, right? And that may be different for other people. I know some people just flat out get out of the business. For me, that's not what I wanted to do. I no longer show homes. I haven't shown homes in a while. I don't really list homes anymore either. And I'm okay with that. I'm at a very high level at a company that is growing and I am able to do my other businesses and I'm not an employee and I'm paid what I'm worth and the opportunities are endless. So that's hard to find. And so for me, it works. For other people, they might just want to open up 5 brokerages in 5 locations. That's their goal. So I think it's different. I think it's really continuing to reevaluate your business and really hone in on where do I want to go? What's it going to take to get me there? And is it realistic and where do I start and get that action plan in place? And some people are just happy listing and selling. There's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, it's great. It's a great business and it's ever changing. So as long as you're keeping up on the market and you're continuing to brand yourself and keeping yourself front and center, you should do just fine. It's that consistency that really matters.
Yep, it's really about that you have to do things that make sense for you and what your goals and objectives are. You'll laugh. When the year starts, I have no goals and objectives. Well, I do, but they're not numbers. It's not like I did 55 transactions last year. I'm going to do 10% more or 15. I never say that because you know what? I always know that people that move, divorce, die, those are things that aren't planned for the most part. And so when you get those clients that are saying, I need to do this because of this, I couldn't have planned on those things happening. But what I can do is constantly make sure that my brand is in front of people, that, I wrote a book, I did a book party, I had 150 people in my backyard, clients and everything, talking about them being in the book. I'm chapter 5, I'm chapter 10, so
Love that.
getting the buzz talking, where then when think life cycle changes happen to those 150 people, they're going to say, oh, we're going to call Dan to bring us in.
Yeah.
But I don't, and what I make, so the funny thing is that strategy of not having a plan, of not saying how many listens I'm going to take, for 10 years, I think every single year it's been more and more. But I always say last year I'm not going to beat last year. Like, and I'm going to say that right now. Last year was a tremendous year. I don't think I'm going to beat it. I'm, I'm maybe close, but like
Yeah.
in the end of the day, I don't know what the back half of the year is going to have. And the other thing is, to me, I put myself in a position that it doesn't matter, right? Where if I do less isn't bad. Like you could say less. We're in New York, New York and Connecticut. It's a crazy, bull market of robustness and house prices increasing like almost
Hmm.
absurdly. And so, I'm thinking there's going to be a bubble burst, but you would have thought we would have seen it by now. We haven't. Interest
Yeah.
rates are still going up and whatever, but there's always people buying and selling really in any market, you know. So again, you got to do what makes sense for you. But you're right though about the branding, understanding who you want to be, what the influence you're going to have on people, developing your business, your social media, your leadership skills. Those are all things that when people are ready to do things in the real estate world, they're going to look to the people that they view are the experts and the leaders, and that's who they're going to want to work with.
Yeah, it's so true. And the market, I mean, I was a agent in Connecticut for a very long time, and that market hasn't really come back from the lack of inventory. And so that changed a lot of businesses for a lot of agents because there just simply wasn't the amount of people putting their homes on the market. And so I know the active inventory before I moved, we live in North Carolina now, but I can remember, my town, which was a smaller town in Middlesex County, there would be like 35 active listings. And then when I was on my way out, there were 2. Right. And I typically would have one of the listings, but sometimes I wouldn't have both. And like that was crazy because everything else was under contract and we were getting 50 offers, 75 offers. I mean, to me, that's not fun. Like, I don't want to go through 50 offers. So I'm surprised. I've seen the market turn around, certainly in Florida, where I also have done business, certainly in North Carolina. I've seen it turn around where it doesn't have that lack of inventory, especially for that long. So it's been interesting to watch, the different markets and that ability to pivot, but in the end, continuing to stay front and center and top of mind for your people that are in your market that are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. It all comes down to, are you getting in front of these people? Are you letting them know who you are? Are you showcasing your skills? Are you getting your listings, your under contracts, your, whatever's allowed in your area for social media, your closings up on the internet and letting people know over and over again? It's repetitive, social proof of what you do and how you help people and what differentiates you in your market is going to always take precedence. And it's always, I find, the majority of my business came from social media, and then obviously later came from a lot of referrals, but they kind of go hand in hand. Social media has always been the driver between all of my success for all of my businesses.
I agree. I post everything. So people in my network, I have 5,000 plus. I think you have 13,000 people on Instagram. I have like 6,000 or whatever. So even on
LinkedIn.
Instagram, I mean, sorry, on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, those are just some of the cases of things that that you want to promote what's going on. And then the social media aspect of tagging your clients when they allow you to, where then like if you're congratulating somebody for under contract or a sale, and then you tag them and then their friends see it as well, and so you're getting the benefit of all of that. My social media is always so positive about thanking the other side, thanking this person. It's always thanking people, as opposed to some people like to do social media. I'm the listing agent, I got 40% more than my list price, and I'm like, I find a lot of things wrong with that. That just means to me that you didn't properly price it, because if you mispriced it by 40%, you should have had because like just like you said, you don't need 50 people bidding on a house. You need 5 people bidding on a house. So maybe you underbid. And then also, why are you making fun of the people? Like if you say somebody paid 40%, you're basically you overspent in essence, when you don't need to do that. You just have to thank everybody and thank you for bringing your buyer and thank you for this. And we're so happy that you're going to love this home. And, when it sells, people will see what it sold for. But to kind of put that in your social media is, I love that people do that, because I do the opposite of that. Right. And so when people see it, they're like, oh my God, look at this. But I will say that social media is so important, because as AI is really just Google on steroids, right? And so the more things that you're putting out there and writing a book and writing articles and being quoted, those things are all, AI is running through the whole internet and pulling these things out. So if your name keeps popping up with words that you've said or things that you've done, you're going to get a little bit higher. Because I do have a fair amount of clients now when I'm like, oh, how did you hear me? They're like, Chat GPT or
Yeah.
Claude, and so I'm trying to do the things to ensure that those avenues still see my name,
Mhm.
so that when people do that, because I throw money out, I spend money on different activities that helps that. And people that I'm close with, they're like, why are you spending money? They're already picking you. And I go, because I want them to pick me forever. Right.
Right.
I don't want someone else to be outspending me or AIing me. So, it's just, and I'm just me, right? No admin, no whatever. And if I can do it, other people can do it as well. But, people need to be committed to this profession. You need to really do it full time. And it's all about, developing your business, social media, being an expert in the field, which is everything that you coach and mentor about.
Yeah. 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 And, it's just honestly like there's no magic button. There's no, but people say, oh, I keep buying leads and all the leads are crap. No, I mean, the leads are what you make of them. And in the end, the leads that are going to be really quality are going to be people that are going to come to you from people that know, like, and trust you and who see you as a constant, because that trust is built, whether it be through seeing your signs all over different neighborhoods, whether it be for, if anybody's still doing like magazine ads or anything like local placement, any sort of media, any sort of social media. It's that trust that you're building with your audience over and over again with that consistency that's going to help you more than any lead source. I mean, we offer a great lead source that we have that's available for any realtor. So I'm happy to give that here at the end of the podcast. But in the end, you have to brand yourself and differentiate yourself. Then when the leads start coming in, there's always going to be like that 3% conversion rate. So people will say, well, those leads sucked from there, and those leads sucked from there. And I've paid for tons and tons of lead sources in my career, and a lot of them weren't great. They're just kind of throwing a phone number and an email address at you. And there have been some that have been really good over the years. I think a lot of that's changing now too with what's going on with Zillow and all of those sources and those abilities to get those feeds into the right sources. If you could work on one thing today to get yourself more business, think about your presence and what that looks like online. When work on search engine optimization, work on having your consistent, is your profile picture clear? Can we tell it's you? Can we tell that you're a real estate agent and you specialize in XYZ? Don't just say that you're a realtor. Come up with that brand and that brand message, differentiate yourself, and have your profiles look consistent across all platforms. Those are some things that you can do today to start creating that trust with your audience. And you have to do this. People don't like to hear this. You have to do this consistency it's not going to be like, oh, I did it for a month and it didn't work. No, you have to create that consistency, that daily post, that information for your clients. You have to do this for years to build that authority online. So start now. If you're not creating a social media presence and you're not getting yourself out there and being relevant to your community and the people that you're trying to serve, start doing that now.
I agree 100%. So I actually built my entire business on Zillow leads. And what's interesting is I love the play Glenn Ross, I think that's what it is, about you got to give me the leads. And the leads are, everyone likes to blame the leads, but you know what? Like you said, it's 3 to 6% of them. It's how you interact with them. And bad leads stay bad, or leads become bad leads if you treat them like bad leads and you're not following up with them and you're not letting them know that you are actually a person that can help. If from a Zillow thing, it's somebody that clicked on a button on a house or an apartment that want this information. So it's
Right,
someone that could be interested. Not everyone, but so
right.
how do you then bring them into your funnel and communicate with them, share information so that they do see, this is a person that can help me get there. And I built my entire business on that, where now all of my leads go to my agents. I take zero Zillow leads now, and I'm spending like $12,000 a month. $12,000 a month. And why
Mhm.
do I do that? Because that's people clicking on a button that they want something. And then I funnel that to my agents, that my independent contractors, who then it's their job to turn that into a sale. And it's based off of people's ability, right? A better agent is going to have a better chance of turning that potential lead into a sale. And somebody that's average is going to have different results, right? So
Mhm.
it's the leads are all the same. They've always been the same because I use a lot of different lead platforms as well. It's what do you do when you're there and how do you turn 3% conversion into 8% conversion, right? That's really the secret sauce where it's hard to even teach that. Some of it you have to have inside you to know I'm going to call them, I'm going to text them, I'm going to follow up, I'm going to share information. So you said you had a lead source that you could share with everyone. So I wanted you to give that before I wrap up.
Yeah, I'm partnered with a company called 72 Smart, and it is a free listing lead source for real estate agents. It is listing leads, so it comes with a free training. All you have to do is go to 72dana.com. That's 72dana.com. You log in, you create an account. You're going to have to go through the free training in order to be qualified to receive listing leads. And these are going to be short audios that you can listen to every single day, about 5 to 6 minutes. They're designed for the busy real estate agent. You can listen to them in your car while you're brushing your teeth, while you're out for a walk. And then you're going to learn how we do things differently with that program. And what's going to differentiate you when you go on the listing appointment more so than anything is the things that you learn and that can implement from this system. So feel free to go to 72dana.com, sign up, listen to the audios, and I know you'll learn something because when I partnered with Greg Haig, he's a well-known trainer, speaker, and if you just Google him, you'll see his program. He's had 72 sold, and I learned something from him after 25 years in the business. I'm like, wow, that was something I would have never thought about going into a listing appointment. So enjoy. It's free to sign up, and you'll be qualified for listing leads after you finish the training.
Oh, thank you very much. So, thank you, Dana, for coming on this week's show. I like your positivity, and your desire to make our industry better through coaching, mentoring, and making sure that the agents are, have all the tools necessary to stay, to be the authority. So, thank you very much.
Oh,
So,
thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
so for everyone, it's The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I'm Daniel Berger. Until next week, thank you very much. If today's stories opened your eyes, wait till you see what's next. Hit the video on screen to join the next adventure with Daniel Berger.